Yo, what's going on, coaches? It's your man, Immanuel, back with a new episode of Multiply Your Sales. And today I'm joined by my girl, Aundra Williams. What's going on with you?
Hello. How are you?
Oh, man, I'm doing amazing. I'm super excited to have you on the podcast because today we're going to be helping out those coaches who are struggling to consistently land new clients.
Yeah.
And with that in mind, I want to get your thoughts. Why do you think many coaches tend to struggle when it comes to attracting and landing new clients?
I believe that we haven't diversified our marketing strategy. We're solely dependent upon social media because I know that that's something that we're taught within the online space is the ease and the effort with signing clients through social media that we oftentimes forget that there's another avenue that we could go through in order for us to sign clients. And so we kind of put all of our eggs inside of one basket instead of really understanding that social media is the third part of the funnel when it comes to just marketing your businesses. So I believe that that is the main reason why is that we don't have enough visibility in order to sell, in order to constantly book clients.
Nah, that's a great point. And I actually want to travel down memory lane for a little
Yeah.
bit. When you look back on your journey as a coach, can you recall a time when you were struggling to land new clients and what did that look like for you?
Oh yeah. I feel like when I first started, I'm like,
She like, oh man, we going back.
right. I'm like, oh wait, where do I start at? But yeah, I definitely believe that my main thing was that I was just solely on social media. And one of the things about me is that I started out as a blogger and I monetized my website. And so when I first started my business, it's kind of almost like you forget about the corporate experience that you have, the 9 to 5 experience that you have, and you solely start to pick up this one strategy and you realize that you haven't really used all of your gifts and all your talents in order for you to sign clients. And that was one of the reasons why I was in this constant state of struggle because I wasn't using all of my gifts and all of my talents. I was kind of just using what everyone else taught me and told me instead of really just flowing in my zone of genius and what felt natural to me. So that I feel like I was in that space for like, I want to say like 2 years, just really just like
Yeah.
taking all these things what the guru said and putting it, and I'm like, this makes no sense. Okay, like the math is
Right.
not.
So with that in mind, when you were going through those struggles, you said it was like 2 years, right? Which shows
Yeah.
that sometimes we can be in those seasons longer than we would like. And
Hmm.
what would you say is the thing that kind of clicked for you and you was like, okay, maybe I need to like stop listening to the gurus and just focus on this one strategy?
I believe like I had a conversation with my sister, and my sister was telling me like, Andra, like you started your business or you started within an online space as this, and you were able to fully monetize your website with affiliate marketing. So why not kind of go back and incorporate some of the things that you did before? And it was like this, like I was like, oh my gosh, why did I think about that before? It was like I was
Right.
making things so complicated, and so that was one of the things that I was like, okay, my sister, and I thank God for my family because they're just like, you know how I don't know if you have if your family is like this, like they have to kind of like just set you down and just like, no, like remember
Yep.
when you did this and you did that. And so yeah, that was one of the big pivotal moments for me is my sister. She had to remind me because when we're on an online space, we start to pick up all these little things and we forget about, the one thing that got us to this point that we're at now.
That's so true. Oftentimes, we get so caught up in what we think we should be doing
Yeah.
that we forget about the things that we were doing and how
Mhm.
well they were working before we
Yeah.
stopped.
Yeah, it's like the most simplest things we
Mhm.
kind of like make it so complex, and I feel like that was one of the things that I'm like, Andrea, just make it simple because as soon as it gets complex, then it's just not going to work anymore.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's something that a lot of coaches can relate to. And I would
Mhm.
love to get your thoughts. What are some signs that we're overcomplicating something that is simple?
I would definitely say that we are feel like our one of the things I had started to do is kind of not try to go like into psychology of things, but one of the things for me is when I have a unregulated nervous system, when I feel all over the place, when the things that should be easy, the things that should come with some sort of effort, like effortless, I feel just filled with anxiety. And so that was one of the signs for me. It was like my nervous system was off balance. I wasn't able to think clearly. I was having anxiety with just the most smallest tasks. And so that was one of the signs to me that I was off my course. because I'm not naturally filled with a person. I'm not a natural person that's like filled with so much anxiety and that I can't think straight. And so I
Mhm.
had to really understand that marketing sales is really a mental component in there also, and it's not so much just a word to paper type of strategy.
That's a good point. And I know mindset gets a tough rap. You know,
Hmm.
like some people are like, man, forget all of the mindset mumbo
Yeah.
jumbo. And to your point, though, it plays a role, right? It doesn't mean like we have to focus on it 100% of the time, but to
Yeah.
ignore the mindset can also be to our detriment as well.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I actually had this conversation with like some of my clients, and they were like, "Andra, I didn't know mindset had this much to do with sales, and I didn't know how I was blocking myself by making everything super
Mhm.
complicated." And we forget how easy sales can be, because I think we're just flooded with so much information online. So it was like, do this if you want to make money. Don't do that. Do this if you want to make a million. And then you start to get like, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to do
Right.
everything. And then you just get so far off course.
Oh man, I can definitely relate to that information overload where
Yes.
there's so many strategies, so many tactics and things that can get you to your goal.
Hmm.
And it's even more challenging when you haven't yet reached that goal and you're
Yeah.
still in the process of getting there because you think, oh, well, maybe that thing over there will be better than what I'm doing right now. And
Hmm.
then you start doing that. And then you're like, oh, well, hold on. This that new tactic that the guru is talking about. So let me
Yeah.
try that. And then you just find yourself leapfrogging instead of like,
Yes.
yo, let me just pick one, head down, and go straight.
Yes. Yes. And I think that, just within the online space, it's like,
Mhm.
a lot of people are like, oh, unniche if you want to make money, do personal branding, do business branding, do X, Y, and Z. And then I feel like you get into this habit of where I call it saving the post type of strategy, where
Mm.
it's that, oh, I'm going to save this post, implement it, deconstruct my business, deconstruct my sales, deconstruct my marketing, and I'm going to do this. And it's a constant habit, like every post that you see online. And so you get to a space of where you no longer feel safe in your business. And when you don't feel safe in your business, then you start to operate from a space of where your nervous system isn't regulated, and it's just like it's like a spiral from there.
Yeah, that's when, like you were talking about earlier, that's when the anxiety starts to creep
Hmm.
up. And if we're not careful, burnout will soon be knocking on our door.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I want to kind of switch gears to like some of the strategies that you found that have been helpful, right? And
Yeah,
you mentioned earlier that you got your start as a blogger and then
yeah,
later transitioned into coaching. So SEO is something that I'm sure you're no stranger to.
yeah.
And I would love to get your thoughts on why you think or no, let me take that back. This is the question I want to ask. Do you think most coaches recognize how important SEO is to land clients?
Absolutely. But I will say that most coaches, depending upon where you are at within your business, because
Hmm.
again, since we are in this phase of business where it's like, I want you to have clients, so I'm
Hmm.
going to take the easiest route. With SEO, it's kind of like a slow burner. It's a long
Hmm.
term strategy, and so with a coach and whoever that person is, they may not have 6 months to a year to pour into a long term strategy to see the results. And so most coaches know what to do, but most coaches don't do it because it's not the most instant satisfaction type of route, gratification type of route. Like it's
Hmm.
not that type of thing. And so we kind of like go behind the scenes, and then as you hit a certain point in your business, then you see that the coaches kind of switch up the direction. They're like, oh, you need to focus on this, you need to focus on that. And so my strategy was that I didn't want for you to kind of like, I understand the importance of it. And I understand that if we were to focus on SEO, in addition to understanding social media marketing, it will allow for you to hit your goals a lot faster. And you don't have to like wait for a certain like time period, like you
Hmm.
don't have to just like wait for it. And then also, I think, it's like just a lot of people just don't want to do it basically. So that's
Right.
in
Yeah.
a nutshell, we don't want to do
Yeah.
it.
Hey, I think you hit on it right with the first point that you made is most people want money today,
Hmm.
and SEO will bring you money, like you mentioned, 6 months from now, a year from now. But the
Yeah.
thing about it is it will bring that recurring revenue.
Yeah.
And some people forfeit the recurring revenue as far as like establishing those streams and those foundations now to
Yeah.
get to the fast buck. And sometimes that just means you're just gonna be hustling,
Yes,
just
exactly.
hustling and trying to turn over clients.
Yes, you never like you, and I think it's like you also you won't feel safe in your business because you don't
Mm,
have any sort of long-term strategy set in place. And
mm,
so you will be in that very hustle bustle stage for at least like 2 years unless you
mm,
start to implement it. And I feel like that's one of the things that if we were to be honest as coaches and as creators, that it's a lot of things that we don't teach them because we're like, oh, we want for you to just like our business and to make sales
mhm,
right now, but we're not setting you up for success to
mhm.
have sustainability. And so it's like, if you want to make 5,000, just go and sell a $5,000 package, easy. But it's like, no, if you want to make 5,000 and continue to make it, like set
Right.
up this and you'll be able to continue to bring in income to your business.
Nah, that's a good point. And there's something that you mentioned, I think at least twice, and I want to stop you for a minute, which is being safe in our business. How do you
Yeah.
define that? What does that look like?
I believe being safe in my business is with the mindset component of it, but then also having a long term strategy set in place to where
Mhm,
if I'm not on social media or if I'm not marketing my business front facing, that I'm still making money. And that's what my
mm,
blog was able to do for me and my
mhm,
website was able to do for me was that I was able to set up different avenues for me to make money through affiliate marketing, through SEO, having my blog monetized, through people joining inside my mailing list. And so for me, feeling safe is that I've set my business up in a way that is sustainable for me, even if I'm not on social media. And that was a
yeah,
component for me that made me like, okay, if I don't want to post the other day, I got to cash out a direct deposit from my website. So I'm good, like, and then I
yeah,
booked the client from Pinterest. So I'm like, I'm good, so it
right.
creates that sustainability for me.
Nah, that's good. And I wanted to define it because maybe some people out there are like, yo, what does that mean to be safe in our business? And just in case anybody was wondering, wanted to
Yeah.
make sure we got that out there so that they know for a fact what it means.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that you've talked about is using SEO. Now, I'm curious, is that SEO primarily being used on the website? Is it SEO being used on Instagram, socials, and YouTube? Where are we focusing primarily using the SEO?
SEO on your website. You
Okay.
can use SEO on YouTube, but
Hmm.
I believe that with the thing is that we want for your brand to become searchable. So
Hmm.
what I always say is that Instagram know you, but does Google know you? Does any of these bigger platforms know you?
Yeah.
Can I Google your name and your everything come up about you? Because we have to think that's where the top, 7, 8 figure entrepreneurs, if I Google their name, everything is coming up. And
Right there.
so so that's why I go back to where it's like, we're kind of like cutting corners. And so I wanted to solely focus upon the fact of having your brand to be searchable. And with searchability, then we can start plugging in your blogs, we can start plugging in your YouTube, and people can start knowing about you. And so
Hmm.
that is more so for the website component, setting your
Hmm.
website up for success, and then however you decide to go from there.
No, that's good. And I love that because when we focus in on one thing, we can get that right and then expand outward, right? So
Yeah.
with the focus being on the website, I think the one mistake, the biggest mistake they can make is just ignoring it outright. What
Mhm.
would you say are some other mistakes that coaches can make when it comes to applying SEO to their websites?
Not paying attention to the website data, such
Hmm.
as some of the times you can have a website, but then the website is not signed up with Google Search Console, or you don't have any Google Analytics to know the data of your website and what
Hmm.
blogs or what podcasts or what, if you insert the YouTube, if that is not on your website. So it's like you don't know exactly what page, what content is bringing you the
Hmm.
sales. So it's kind of like, again, just throwing things. Is that saying like spaghetti noodles or noodles at
Yeah,
the wall?
yeah, throwing
Just throw,
spaghetti at the wall.
yeah, just throw spaghetti like the whole with the meatballs. Okay, like just
Right.
throwing it at the wall, and you don't have no idea. So that's the one thing is not setting up your website, looking at your data, and then
Hmm.
also too is that we have content, we have a YouTube, we have all of this, but
Mhm.
there's no sort of interlinking. So like we
Mm,
have a YouTube, but only thing we're not using it to grow our business. It's more of like,
mm,
oh, look at me and a vlog and this and that.
yeah,
And it's like, okay, what is that going to do besides just doing affiliate marketing? Like
yeah,
you have a business, you have offers. So why are you not creating content to really support the offers that you have? And then even when it comes to the blog, it's like it's a more lifestyle blog. And so that's more the thing is that understanding that you're not using it for its purposes. And if you are using it for its purposes, you're not doing enough of it to where now SEO and Google can say, okay, she's a thought leader in the industry, or this website, whenever she posts, I want to continue to rank it. And so it's like just either not doing enough of it or just not even having no sort of idea of what it is that you need to do. So those are like the two mistakes that I see happening.
nah, that's good. And with that in mind, kind of want to dive a little bit deeper into it before we pivot.
Yeah.
And the question that I want to ask is, are there specific pages on the website that you feel need to be optimized first?
Yes. I would definitely say your home page, your about page, and your maybe your contact and your service page. So I don't believe that you need to have so many like things within your menu and to have a
Hmm.
drop down. I believe that you need to just have these are what you will call cornerstone pages. So if you optimize your cornerstone pages, then Google can start to read those pages also, and they can. And the majority of the time on your homepage, you will have your social media links. So they'll start just promoting your social media links also with the other content on there. So I would say just make sure that you are cornerstoning and you are prioritizing all of the important pages on your website and then leaving all the other ones. You don't have to really, you have to focus on it, but just not right now.
No, that's good. And one other question with regards to that is, I know a lot of people tend to repost their content, whether it's videos or podcasts on their website. Do you recommend them doing that, or just focusing on the pages that you mentioned? Is it necessary when it comes to landing clients?
I well, is if you were to repost your social media content, some of the times we set it up in a way to where it has the title is built for social media, and some of the times we don't have any bullet points. So these are called like the H's, the hierarchy. So the H1,
Mhm.
H2, H3. Those are not set up in social media posts. So if you were to do it, it wouldn't make any sense to kind of like repurpose it from social media, but first starting from your blog first or from any sort of long-term content first and then repurposing it from there, because then we know at least that it's set up properly. And with the chapters on YouTube and also with the chapters within your blog, I mean your podcast, is set up properly. So, but we kind of do it the other way, like, oh, this would be a good blog topic or a good
Right.
YouTube. So let me go backwards. It's like, no, start from the top of the funnel and then go down. It's the most easiest way to think about it.
I love it, because essentially what you're doing today is you're helping them to figure out what place they should put each of these bricks in. Because
Yes.
all of these things are important. They all play a role. But like the point you've been making, if you put them into place in the wrong order, you just gonna create a headache for yourself. And I love the
Yeah.
fact that you said it's better to just start with the long form content, whether that be an article, a blog post, a full video or podcast, and then from there start to work on the short form. But like you
Yeah.
said, most people are doing it the other way around.
Yeah, like we don't want to start from the top down. It's like from the bottom up. And so it's like, no, just start from the top down, because I guarantee you when you get into a mastermind that's going to charge you $500,000 or $1 million, they're going to tell you to what you're doing, your strategy is complicated. Start from the top down and then do that and do some filler content along the way. So it's like I'm kind of like I'm saving you money and also teaching you a
You are.
strategy that's going to help you to create sales. Just incorporate a top-down approach in your strategy, and if you do a top-down, you're hitting every point that you need to hit within your business.
Love that. Love that. Now, one of the things that we really touch on here on the podcast is how coaches can land more clients and increase their sales using video, email, and podcasts. When you
Yes,
look at your business, which one would you say has been the most effective for landing clients for you?
email.
Okay. Okay. Talk about it. Like, what is it about email that has worked the best for you?
I believe that it's a space for me to be a thought leader and for me to be a little spicy and talk about things that we don't want to hear on social media, because I believe that what I just said right now is that they're like, if I was to go and say this, or maybe this is just my opinion, is that they'll be like, whatever, she's not teaching you how to go create a hook for reels, like, so it kind of get like washed
Yeah.
down. And so I believe that the people who join my mailing list is that I'm like, no, like, this is what you need to prioritize. And I'm able to flex my expertise and I'm able to constantly sell to them. And I have like my own strategy of where I say that as much as you post on social media is as much as you should be sending emails out to your list. So if you're like those type of people, that's like type of person that's like, I'm going to post 5 days out the week, but then I'm going to only email my list one day. It's like, and what type of math is this? It just doesn't make
sense. That's real. That is so real. And with that in mind, let's dive a little bit deeper into your email strategy. I always like to kind of see, what have you tried that didn't work or get the results that you were expecting?
Man, I feel like that's like one of the questions from the beginning, like, where can I go? I think for me, just constantly selling without going through it and creating, I would say, a sales and brand strategy. So going at it with more like by the quarter, and that's more so what, I would say, like, constantly in this, I'm going to keep selling to you instead of me stepping back and saying, no, for one quarter, I'm going to nurture you. I'm going to educate you. Then the next quarter, I'm going to sell to you. And so I still do, the sales within a PS section, but I try to break it up to where it's by the quarter and I can focus on different things. And so that was one of the things I didn't incorporate before. And I wanted to start to incorporate that. So then it started to make sense for me to start to increase the frequency of my emails because I'm doing it by the quarter. And instead of me just like, oh, on Monday, I'm going to do this. And on Tuesday, I'm going to do that. It's like, no. So yeah, that was more so my strategy now is just, having a set quarterly strategy.
No, that's good. And I really like the point that you made about not just showing up when it's time to sell.
Yeah.
Because then people treat their email list kind of like a sales booth. Like, when you go somewhere at a carnival and they're like, come on over here.
Right.
Like they just want to sell you something. We're not really building a relationship. And the email is the perfect place to build that relationship, or what's known as that know, like, trust factor. Like, that's a perfect opportunity to do that. And like you mentioned, come through with the Jedi trick with the PS, like, yo, in case you want to buy something, here you go.
Yeah.
So that's the way you do it.
Yeah, like, and I think, once we are able to say, like, and I also think too, going back to that, is like, I have this thing of where I don't like to repurpose my content from social media because I believe that it's its own separate community. Now, I may still, like with my podcast and my blogs, like I'll do that. But then when it comes to other things, I think people join inside of mailing lists because it's a community. Like, I feel like, the strategies that we integrate now is like, whatever I post on social media, I'm going to take that same thing and now push it to my audience. And I think of, why would someone even want to join your list if you're literally doing the same thing? Like, it's the same strategy. It's the same sales strategy. Like, it's the same content. Like, there's no type of incentive for me to join. So then you start to become a little bit more innovative and say, like, what made me join someone's list and why am I still on that person's list? Is it because of the frequency? Is it because of how, they're not solely just, doing sales content? Is it because they have an actual community? And I know that if I join their email community, it's going to be like the most hilarious content and so funny. And I started to incorporate that. And before then, I promise you, no one used to hear, I used to always say, reply back, reply back. No one replied back. Okay. Like, I'm like, no one replied back.
I know how that feels.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, what the heck? And then I started, like, how y'all gonna join my list? And then when I try to have a conversation with y'all just not talking back to me. Like, right. But then I started realizing, okay, like, let me switch this strategy up. And I promise you, like, everyone is like replying back. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing.
Yeah. See, and the key that you're talking about is the strategy, right? I think a lot of times people kind of cannonball into social media. They cannonball into email, into podcasts, into YouTube. but oftentimes they don't have a strategy. And
Mhm.
it's nothing wrong with, like jumping out there, doing it. But at some point, you're going to have to be like, all right, I got to get a strategy together. I got to figure this thing out so that it can actually be effective and
Yeah.
get you clients, right?
Yeah, like that's the only way that it's going to work. Like, and I'm pretty sure, like with your podcast, like you like and how you're integrating the video, you're like, it's a strategy behind this, okay? Like it's a
Mhm.
strategy behind why I'm doing the way that I'm doing. And it's like, I think on social media, since again, when we have that save the post type of mindset, they're looking at you like, oh, he has a successful podcast and successful this. Let me now do the same thing that he's doing and save the post instead of just like, no, let me ask him what type of strategy and why he's doing this. Like, let me ask him why he's not doing a whole bio when he does his podcast. Like, I'm sure there's a whole strategy. You're like, no, we're skipping a bio. Like, we're
Yeah.
going straight into the meat. Okay. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. Like everything has to be strategic when we're talking about business, right? Now, if it's a hobby, like you ain't necessarily got to be strategic. It will
Yeah.
help, especially if you want to grow on any platform. But especially when it comes to landing clients and getting business, getting sales, like you have to have some type of strategy in
Yeah.
place. Don't just wing it. But now that's really good. And the other question that I wanted to ask you around email is how much are you doing yourself versus outsourcing or having your team help you with?
I would say okay, so this is going to be crazy, but I do all of my emails myself. And
Okay. And hold on, I forgot to ask the question. How often are you emailing? I know you talked about frequency.
yeah, so right now, I would say around like 3 to 4 days that I'm sending out
Okay.
emails.
No,
At
that's
first, it was
good.
every day, but then I'm like, let me kind of cut back. So now we're
Okay.
at around 3 to 4 days. And so with me is that since I try to create things in this space of where it's like me just having a conversation, and so majority of the times I'm sitting in my bed and I'm like at 1 o'clock, and I'll wake up and I'll just write an email like that's more so my strategy. And so I don't have to, I do everything from my phone, and it's kind of like on the spot, and I'll think of something and I'll schedule the email and it goes out. So that's my strategy, is that I kind of don't have a strategy. I incorporated other strategies where I had like my VA and I had a marketing agency that used to create all of my content, but I wanted to, I don't know, like I just felt like it just made more sense for me to do it this way. And so I kind of just have it on my phone. I'll think of something, write an email, and then I'll just send it out. And it's funny because my clients, they'll ask me something like, Andrew, you always sending out emails. And I'm like, because I'm always thinking about something. I'm
Right.
always just like waking up. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so that's more so of my strategy. I feel like I told on myself is kind of be like, what is Andrew talking about? But I believe as a writer, it's more of me just writing and being on a spot. And I also was inside of a email program, and she runs a $1 million email business. And she just like, my clients send emails from the jacuzzi, like they don't have a team to do it. And I was like, whoa, that's a flex, because I had an
Right.
agency to do it. And then once I started to incorporate that, I was like, wow, I'm in my bed with my pajamas on, writing an email. I don't have a team to do it. This is my thoughts. And yeah, I feel like now I need to know your thoughts on like what do you do so I can feel.
Nah, no. Honestly, I think that what you're doing works. Like, it's
Yeah.
not gonna work for everybody,
Oh,
but
no, no, no.
see, the most important thing is you're doing what you enjoy doing. Like, it's not like a weight or a burden for you,
Yeah.
right? Like some people, they struggle, they don't know what to write.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing when you're in a space where you're like, yo, I got ideas. And as soon as these ideas come to mind, yo, it's time to write. Yo, let me get the phone, let me get the
Yeah.
notepad. And I think that you got to take advantage of that, because some people, they get all of these downloads of ideas, but what do? They don't ever pick up the phone. They don't
Yeah.
ever pick up the notebook. And then they're like, yo, I don't know what to write about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like the fact that you just go like, yo, as soon as you get the download, yo, it's like, yo, it's time to put it in.
Period. Yes, I know. Like some people, that is true. Like this strategy won't work for other people. Like I've told
Yeah.
my clients like the same strategy, and they're like, "Yeah, this doesn't work for me." But then I'm like, "Okay, well, just have a whole thought process. Have your VA to do it. Your schedule it out like that." But I believe that again, like when we operate or when we build a business that is built around our talents. I started out
Yes.
as a blogger,
Yes.
and I started out as a writer. And so for me, I always have so many ideas, and it's so easy for me to write. And I just flow with that. Now that's why when you ask me like which one do you prefer, I'm like writing all day, because
Yeah.
videos, I have to get dressed, I have to
Right.
figure out what I'm gonna wear, and that's a whole process right there.
Right.
And so yeah.
Trust me, I know. Like similar to you, like when it comes to creating content, I got my start as a blogger. And then from there I went to YouTube, but I wasn't on camera. And that's
Uh-huh.
kind of what led to my transition to like doing podcasts, because I
Yeah.
was essentially doing podcasts on YouTube. It would be like graphics and stuff on the screen, but then I would be doing a voiceover over it. Somebody was like, yo, why don't you start a podcast? And
Right.
then, here we are 10 years later, and I'm still doing the dang
Wow.
thing, right?
Wow.
But the one thing that I can say with you is doing an audio podcast is perfect. Like, yo, you can show up in your pajamas or whatever, however
Mhm.
you want. You can rock out, do your business. But well, when you're doing video, and since 2020, like everything has been video. Like just doing
Yeah.
audio out the door. Everybody like, yo, where we at? We on Zoom, we on Riverside, we on StreamYard.
Yes.
So
And I think it goes back to just making things complicated,
yeah.
being just in this space of just doing too much. And so I'm like in my space where it's like, I want to not be over the top and be like massively annoying or massively complex on my strategy. So me focusing on things that I could be very chilled out with, like with my podcast, like I'm in my pajamas also
I
drinking
love it.
coffee, like not even like,
Yeah,
even caring, but then like how you
right,
said, like, focusing on your strengths. And you had a podcast, and you had a YouTube, but you're doing audio. Like, let me make this make sense, okay? And that's
right.
kind of like where I'm at. Like, let it make sense.
Yeah, and similar, like you talked a little bit about my strategy. I definitely have one, right? For me, I definitely know how to grow a podcast when it comes to like the audio side of things.
Yeah.
Like I've done it, and like for me, that's where I prioritize the growth, because I know if I can attract audio listeners, it'll be easy to get people to go watch the video. So
Period.
for me, I do video so that one, it's up on YouTube and it can attract people. My guess, you guys can grab the footage, use it, because I know a lot of people are on socials. Y'all can clip it up, so it
Yeah.
provides you guys with that benefit. But as far as the strategy that I'm employing for growth with the podcast, it's with the audio show. Like I know how to get that to grow and then send people over to the YouTube. So for me, similar to you, I'm not trying to go 100% on both of them, but having both of them in place, they serve a different role. So that's all that
Yeah.
strategy that we were talking about, right?
Yes, come on,
Yeah.
multi-dimensional. You're like, I have a whole strategy. But that's where, a lot of people, when we look at it like that, we're just like, oh, he's just on YouTube.
Yep.
He's on a podcast. And since we don't know really the strategy, we'll
Yep.
kind of try to do that same thing
Mhm.
instead of asking, because you just said you're part-time a little bit on both. So
Mhm.
I would think that you're full-time, and then what's going to happen is that I'm going to overexhaust myself doing something that I think that you're doing, and then it's not going to work. I'm going to get burnt out. And so it's kind of just like learn the strategy instead of just having that save the post mindset, or saving the strategy that you see someone else applying, and just really just ask them what they're doing. If that's, that will just create so much ease and flow.
Right. The one thing that I can say, I think the most dangerous things that coaches have to be aware of is trying to attempt a strategy just based on what you see. Like,
Yeah.
because you don't know what's happening behind the scenes, right? And
Hmm.
I would say one of the most obvious is you or we or people can compare themselves and look at other people and be like, oh, look at what they're doing. Yo, I got to start making reels or TikToks
Yeah.
or videos like that. But then the one question they never stop to ask is, are they doing it alone? Like, do they have a whole team? Like,
Yeah.
is that the reason why they were able to put out like Gary Vee 8 pieces
Yeah.
of content everywhere on all platforms every day? And it's just
Yes.
like, yo, you are one person. Like, you have to commit, pick one platform, go all in. Like you mentioned, play to your strengths.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of like what I teach my clients, is to build a custom marketing strategy or visibility strategy based upon their strengths and how regulated they feel. Like some of my clients, they feel so at ease on TikTok, versus it's some that's like, I'm a LinkedIn girly, okay? Like there's
Yeah,
some that's like that. And then as you said, like understanding that most people do not do it alone. And so you're going to overexhaust yourself because you're making a strategy complicated and you're doing everything by yourself. And so I have this thing where I say, like, narrow is the way until it's time to make it wide. And
yeah,
so narrow is a way to making six figures. And once you get the six figures, it's easy to kind of like duplicate that and to create multi six figures. But if you're on your way to make six figures or making 5-figure months, you have to keep that path narrow and you have to be focused and not to add in so many things and get this shiny eye type of mindset where you start to just do, oh, you know, like he has a podcast or he has a YouTube, she's doing 10, you know, she just purchased a studio space to do content. Like, no, so it's like, that's not your testimony right now. It will be, but you know, give yourself
not in this
time.
season.
Yeah, not in this season. Give yourself time to grow.
Right. Oh man, I love it. And you know, one of the things that kind of comes to mind that I think is so important for people to recognize is that you have to make ask yourself one critical question when you're picking a platform, right? When you're making that narrow decision, is making sure that the audience you want to attract is on that platform. Like that's the biggest mistake you can make by choosing one thing and then you're like, yo, it's not working, I'm not getting no clients. Well, did you choose the right platform? Like, where are the people and the clients that you want to attract? Once you can say, hey, they're on IG, they're on YouTube, you know, like they're on Pinterest, you know, they're on LinkedIn, wherever they are, then you can say, okay, I can go all in, find a strategy, implement it, and I know I will get results and attract the people that I want. And like you mentioned, expand from there.
Yes, I totally agree. It's like just use your strengths and then finding the right platform, knowing where your audience is at, and then just doubling down on that. Like, and you don't have to do all the things and just, you know, you don't have to be everywhere and do all the things. You need to be where your audience is at and just have a very strategic strategy. And I feel like that's really what helped me is that I first started out everything on Pinterest. And I remember I had a business coach and she was telling me like, you're doing good on Pinterest, but have you ever thought about Instagram? And I was like, no, I would never be on Instagram. Like I love to write. It's good over here. I feel at peace over here. But then it's like, okay, let me now. But it was after I made a certain amount of money where I decided to now pivot. But it's like just keep it narrow until it's time to widen it.
Totally makes sense. I think that that's definitely the way to go. And with that in mind, just kind of want to quickly recap for our coaches, you know, some of the highlights that we talked about so far. So you've talked about the importance of making sure that they optimize their websites for SEO, making sure that, you know, you got that page, your homepage optimized, you got your services page optimized, your contact. Make sure you just have those foundational pieces locked in. And then in addition to that, you talked about the importance of email. I think that that's a perfect way for the coaches out there to begin to develop and strengthen their relationship or nurture that relationship with their clients or future clients. So yeah, man, I think that this discussion, the things that you've been sharing with us, you're dropping crazy gems. And with that in mind, we do have a little bit of time. So I want to talk about it since you mentioned it, which is the Pinterest marketing. You know, how have you used that to land clients? Like, what does that look like exactly?
For me, it looks like creating any sort of long form content. So that could be within someone else's case, like a YouTube, a podcast, a blog, and creating pins from those. So I like to create at least like 3 to 5 pins, doing a little bit of A and B testing to figure out which title sticks the most. And from there, the good thing about if you learn SEO, it really applies to Pinterest because Pinterest is a visual search engine. So it's kind of like implementing that same SEO that you would on your website now into a platform that's not like YouTube, but this platform is actually, not like Instagram, but this platform is actually set up for that. And so I started pushing out multiple pins on different titles. I figured out what kind of like landed. And from there, I just started like, you know, as I mentioned, interlinking, creating content that's for my services and also creating pins that's for my mailing list and just constantly creating those. Within 6 months, I was able to go from when I first started the strategy organically, I was getting like 200 I would say like 200 monthly viewers on my website, and then it doubled to almost 15,000. So I was like,
that's more than doubling from 200 to 15,000. Yeah, like that's more than a double.
you gotta be a little bit humble.
You out here, like, you know, like that's an astronomical growth.
You gotta be a little bit humble with it. So, you know, it's a quick little.
I love that. Like, yo, I almost missed it. Like, 200, then, it doubled to, 15,000,
Yeah,
what
it's
I'm saying?
like
Light work.
like nothing major, nothing major. But
I
yeah,
thought,
it ended up,
you was about to say like 500 or some thousand, maybe. She was like, oh,
yeah.
15,000, just a little light work.
Yeah, every time that I tell people that, they're like, and I'm like, okay, just a measly 15,000 is what I've been able to accumulate from it. But yeah, so I was able to grow my website from
Mhm.
Pinterest and my mailing list from Pinterest. And so I decided that I was like, okay, let me start to take some of the video content and the podcast content and also push it out there, and then just link it back to not to the thing that people also do was that they'll link it to the platform, like they'll link it to
Right.
Spotify or link
Mhm.
it, but you want to have it to go to like your website. So I just sent them from that. I just sent them to back to my website, and from my website, then they can go to whichever one they want to go to. So I was able to become a little bit more searchable before they go off to someone else's platform.
Mhm.
So that was my strategy of just being consistent. Again,
Yeah.
you have to go in it with the mindset that it is going to take some time, and
Mhm.
then once you kind of set that up and you push out your products and your services on there, just if you, I want to say like last month, I
Mhm.
don't necessarily help guys within my business like males, but
Mhm.
I received an email from someone who was like, "Oh, I found your blog through Pinterest
Mhm.
and I want to sign up for your SEO marketing." And I was like, I don't even have that service anymore, but that's just to let you
Wow.
know that how long the shelf life is to that. And so that's one of the things that I say as far as Pinterest, that was my strategy.
Oh man, I love that. So for all of the coaches out there who like writing is your thing, like yo,
Mhm.
this episode has been a gold mine for you guys because like you have dropped so many gems for all of our writer focused coaches, and
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. And with that in mind, with the Pinterest, what type of content would you recommend they getting started with? Let's say like they not on Pinterest, like they don't have a clue, they starting off as a beginner, but they're like, yo, I like to write. Like, where should I start?
I would say that to just write just at least like 3 articles and just push that out there and do A and B testing. So you don't need to. The good thing about with Pinterest that the shelf life is high. So
Mhm.
we just want to be able to see what kind of works. And so if you have any sort of content, just change the titling up on the actual piece of content and
Okay.
push it out there. So that would be the best strategy, is to not go overboard until you know the platform. And
Yeah.
then to also take that, they're also, trying to keep up with all the other platforms. And so with taking that and creating shorts from that and putting it on Pinterest, that will work for your with the visibility of your account also. And so yeah.
Nice. So I'll be honest, like I'm not very familiar with Pinterest, especially not like actively using it. I'm
Yeah.
being 100%. So like the reason why I preface that is because my next question may seem like a elementary or a silly one,
Yeah.
but on Pinterest, like are the visuals king? Are the titles king? Like what's king over there?
Visuals and SEO.
Okay.
So since it is a visual based platform, it's really great. Like, I know I talked about this from a writer standpoint, but it's really
Mhm.
great if you are a graphic designer, if you
Okay.
are a brand designer, if you create logos, or if you are a photographer.
Mhm.
Anything that's visual based. One of my clients, she's a chef, and she does really good to where she got picked up to do sponsorships by Google. So
Nice.
it's a great platform if you just have any sort of visuals within your business, but it's also, they want to keep the essence of their platform by focusing on written content also. So just with any platform that has evolved over time, they added in the videos and the visuals and all that, but it is built for SEO and for visuals. So yeah, so I feel like also too, a lot of people that don't know about it, so they don't really go to it, because is
Yeah.
if you were to really think about it also, they had the highest payout when it came to, when if you were to start to use videos or any type of visuals. With Instagram, they'll give you like a few $100. Like with them, they was paying like $5,000, $10,000
Oh
to
wow.
their, yeah, and no one knew about it. But the ones who knew about it, like
Mhm.
they was, they was in that,
Tell
yeah,
nobody. You
like
said
those
like tell nobody.
they was in there. I just went from 200 to 15,000 humble. They was in that
Right.
stage. They was there. And so yeah, that's a great thing about it, that not too many people use a platform, but they're using it now though. But back then, not too many people was using a platform, and
Yeah.
so you can easily make so much money just by being on that platform.
I love that. And with that in mind, if we have some coaches who are like, yo, I want to give Pinterest a try, do you have a course, a product, a service that you offer that helps people in with their Pinterest marketing?
Yes. So I have just a basic Pinterest marketing 101 course where it just talks about how to get your pins up and running, understanding just the basics of Pinterest, nothing too fancy, because I feel like it can get, just like with SEO, it's a lot of intricate pieces. So I
Mhm.
have a Pinterest course. It's called Pinterest Marketing 101, where it talks about just setting up your account, understanding how to use third-party content to grow your profile,
Okay.
and just setting up pins and boards and what type of content to push out. So yeah, basic Pinterest and SEO course
I love that. And where can they get that?
on AundraWilliams.com. So I have AundraWilliams.com/shop.
Love it. Love it. And man, Aundra, you've come on here and dropped so many gems. Before we wrap up, I just want to hand the mic over to you. Are there any last or closing words you like to leave our listeners and our viewers with, or any questions that you like to ask me before we wrap up?
Yes. How? Because I feel like I want to say this, but not like from a sense of, I know we're recording, but I have my podcast, and it's something that I really want to just grow. So I know it's a lot of people out there who have like a podcast and they're just getting started. And I know you said that you primarily use podcasts for your business. Like, what was like the one thing that really, like, the one strategy that you like use to this day that has allowed for you to see massive results?
Yeah, so I think one of and I'll give you this one. I think one of the biggest mistakes that podcasters, especially new podcasters, make is creating a podcast with themselves in mind instead of the clients that they want to attract. Right. And that goes across the board when it comes to the topics you're talking about, what you name your show, the guests that you bring on. All of those things should be connected to the clients and the people that you ultimately want to attract to your show. And when I have coaching calls all the time, like that's the biggest piece that I have to address with the clients that I'm working with
Yeah.
is like, yo, like, I get it. That's a clever name. I've been there,
Mhm.
right? Like that's part of, let me just use myself as an example, right? That's the reason why I rebranded this podcast, right? This should
Oh.
officially be season 5 of the Why We Succeed podcast. But I
Mhm.
started to get clarity on the fact of who I want to attract. And I was like, yo, I've been trying. When I started the podcast, I was like, yo, I want to get coaches. I want to help content creators. I want to help agency owners. And I'm like, yo, that's so broad. That's so many people. And this
Yeah.
year I got clarity. I was like, yo, I need to just pick one. And I was like, well, let me just focus on coaches. And then I started looking at the name as I've been, honing my copywriting skills. I'm like, why we succeed? Like, what does that tell somebody? Like, would I really stop scrolling and be like, yo, I gotta see what that is and let me go watch it? I'm like, nah, I gotta make sure that the name is something that when they scroll it, it's something that they want. It's gonna trigger either a pain that they have or it's gonna trigger a desire that they have. So I was like, multiply your sales. Anybody
Oh,
that wants some more money, that's gonna make them stop. Like
yeah.
especially if I got the cover art that will also grab your attention. Then when you actually click on the show, make sure that we talking about that. Like it's not gonna be the Multiply Your Sales podcast, and then when you get over there, it's just gonna be like, Barbara Thomas episode 1, Kyle Ramsey's episode 2. Like, what does that tell people? Unless you got, like a famous person on your show, you got Beyonce or Oprah, and
Yeah.
they gonna get the clicks. You got to make sure that the titles are aligned with what your show is about and what people want to learn about. So for me, I would say that's the key strategy that, like I have to harp into my clients and just let them know, like, yo, this is the most important thing. If you don't get anything else right, get
Yeah.
this right. And, like I started working on this year a resource that I'm putting out together. I was just actually today putting
Wow.
together the ebook mock-up, getting it ready, right? And it's podcast launch mistakes. And it's talking about the 3 profit-killing mistakes that coaches make when they're launching a podcast that will ultimately hinder you from making money and landing clients. So it's just like so timely that you would ask that question.
Yes, it was like a divine timing. Like,
Right.
by the way,
Right.
But I love that. Like, I love that because a lot of people, we don't know that. Like, we always like,
Mhm.
oh, this is very personal and near and dear to me. And so
Yeah.
I want to create a podcast that's based
Mhm.
around that. But then when we go back to thinking about the profitability and
Yeah.
just having a business, it's like, are you strategic with it? And
Right.
some of the times, no, it's just
Mhm.
that we're not. So that's amazing. I love
Yeah.
that. So that's kind of like my last ending thing because I can go off. I'm
Mhm.
very good of going off on a tangent when with podcasts. So that was more so the thing is like, just highlighting you because I overlooked your podcast and did a lot of amazing interviews with other individuals. And so I
Thank
know
you.
that you're welcome. So I know that with you is that, just how can we just give you your flowers and how you're
Mhm.
using your brand to help other people, and so I love that.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm implementing this time around, right, is so one of the strategies that I use for growth, just to kind of share with you,
Yeah.
is I take this long form episode and I break it up into multiple parts. Now this isn't new for most people, but this is what catapulted, a podcast that my most successful podcast was able to get to over 2 million downloads in like under 3 years. And it
Wow.
started with using this strategy. Like I
Yeah.
launched the podcast doing 2 a weeks, like what I'm doing now. Like everything is a progression, right? So I
Mhm.
started with 2 a weeks, and then I did that for a whole year. And then the next year I was like, yo, I eventually want to go daily. But, for me, I'm a man of faith. So I was like, yo, God, you give me the green light when to go and do every single day. And then when I got that light, it was off to the races. And then that's
Yeah.
how I grew my show. I say this, though. I would use one title in just part one, part two, part three, part four. It worked. But now what I'm doing is I'm using the same strategy, multiple parts, but every part is going to have a different title that's going to harp on a desire or a pain point that the audience has. So
Mhm.
even though it's the same guest, like it's going to target what we're addressing in this specific episode instead of just, oh, I already heard part one, part two, probably not even that important, or part three
Yeah.
isn't that important. But then when you see, oh, in this one, we diving into Pinterest, marketing with my girl Aundra. What's Pinterest? I want to know about that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I gotta watch or listen to part three. So I would just say for me, that's something else that I would add is just, making sure that you're implementing the strategies that will get you the results that you ultimately want.
I love it. It's giving Mike Todd faith series just in a podcast format. Like I love it. I love
Love it.
it.
Yo, this has been dope. So any closing or last words for the audience before we jet?
I would definitely just tell you guys to prioritize the data within your business. Like, if nothing
Mhm.
else, really understanding the data of your business because that is really going to fuel the way for you within the next upcoming months and years of your business or your coaching business.
Yeah, that's good. And definitely let them know how they can get in contact with you if they want to work with you, support you, follow you, or subscribe to your email list.
Yes, 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 yes. So you can follow me at Andra.Williams. My website is AndraWilliams.com. And then I have a weekly newsletter called The Pew, where it talks about just faith based coaching, business, marketing tips for faith based coaches and service providers, and just also a little bit of humor side of there also. That's called The Pew also. So that is also www.AndraWilliams.com/newsletter. And then it'll pop up.
Perfect. Well, Andra, I'm gonna add the links to your website, your socials, all of that in the description, so you guys can go show her some love and support. But I appreciate you. Like this was a fun time for me, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you ever want to come back and be a guest on the podcast, you have an open invitation. Thank you for
Thank
everything you
you.
share with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.